We're gonna freestyle this one too. How's that looking? Can't tell if we're rolling or not. Yeah, we're rolling. Sorry about that, everybody. Now, the other day I was driving you through my old hood, and I promised you that I would show you middle class, what they would call white. Now, I don't believe in racism. I've explained that once. I'll keep explaining it. I don't believe in race. It's a myth. It's a myth. But people believe in it so much because it's so easy to identify yourself as white. But within the white spectrum of color identity, race, you get this this whole continent that they call Europe, which Europe has a lot of countries, as you know. Oh, look at that. Kindness and patience. Yeah, there's even diversity in the United Kingdom. Scottish and Irish and British. So this is a neighborhood that I grew up in. Remember what I said about green trim houses? That's where the Polish lived. And the blue trimmed houses. I think it was blue, green and blue. I've been out in the neighborhood for so long I can't remember. But you're gonna see up ahead there's an Anglican church. So this neighborhood would have been predominantly British ethnic groups living here from the British Empire. And in Canadian history, the British defeated the French. Otherwise, you would be seeing Catholic churches all over the place, and this would have been a French neighborhood. But the British defeated the French. And what we're seeing here is Anglican churches in a predominantly Anglican neighborhood. This ain't, I don't know who lives here now, but this would have been your middle class white neighborhood. Very nice. It's still very nice here. I don't think you're going to get too much riffraff. Let's take a look at their back lanes. It's probably pretty nice. Up ahead on the right hand side, you're going to see my old school. Oh, I was just a little kid. We went to that school right after the living hell of the Hell House that I told you about earlier, where I witnessed an entire family committing suicide right next door to me, and I witnessed I guess he was the father of the house. He went up right to the pinnacle of the top of the house, and his whole family was cheering him on to jump, and he jumped. He landed on his car and his guts spilled out right in front of my face. And so this neighborhood is much different in comparison to that neighborhood. They must have added on to the old school, because I don't remember all this new stuff. But anyways, down this back lane, one of these houses, we noticed some kids had left their toy trucks out, and we were a poor Métis family, so we just wanted to help ourselves. We in our minds we thought, oh, they didn't want them anymore, because it's sort of an unwritten rule in the North End. If it's not tied down, it's for free. So if there was a lawnmower left out, the house right here, I'm going to turn right. This little gray house you'll see. I had a little friend who lived there. I think he was living with his grandma. Anyways, she didn't let me play with him for too long. I think she had some prejudices about me. And I did one bad thing, one wrong thing, and I wasn't allowed to play with him anymore. That's the life of being a Métis kid, just a little kid. Over here on the left, you're gonna see my old house, if it's still there. Yeah, it's not really a house, it's a side-by-side. It's still here. I don't remember which one we lived in, but it was much worse off than it is now. I don't think there were cockroaches in this one. I don't think we had mice or bed bugs in this one. We were starting to pull ourselves out of this terrible pit that we were existing in previously. My parents were still very young. I'm pretty sure it's this corner house. I'll pull right up to it. Yes. So there you go. That's what it looked like. And we would see some of the kids from the neighborhood here. And they were the cool kids, man. Blonde-haired kids, football players, baseball players. Very exciting. You'd want to be them. But by this age, I didn't know about race or racism. I only was able to tell the difference between dark brown-haired, black-haired people and blonde-haired people. And it seemed like the blonde people were the coolest. But I didn't have any sense of racism or race. But I was experiencing it, as I explained. This old lady didn't want me to play with her little kid. I'll tell you the reason for that. On this corner over here to the right, there used to be a line that sent you directly to the fire department. And I pulled the line just for kicks. Well, I was only about 7 or 8. I didn't know any better. I just wanted to see a fire truck. Well, the fire truck came, and I wanted to show my friend. I think his name was Billy. There was a lot of Billies back then. Well, Billy's grandmother told me to go home, and I wasn't allowed to come and play with Billy anymore. Now, this is wintertime. Oh, this was a nice neighborhood. The sun shines, and it's warm down here. How the sun shines. How the sun shines. Down here, like these are riverfront properties right here. Ukrainians are living here now. Very expensive to live here because you're right on the river. I'm only clearing my throat. I don't have COVID-19, but we're still in the pandemic, and the polar vortex that we were in the last video, it's over. So what we're experiencing right now is mild weather. This is minus 14 degrees Celsius. We're still in a very fancy neighborhood in comparison to the ghetto. Gangsters. But you know what? The kids around here are pretty decent. The families around here are pretty decent. They're pretty reasonable. I don't think that these people are very racist in a discriminatory way. I believe that these people are pretty reasonable. I think that they can be unreasonable at times, because at times you have to protect your property, you know? And if you got any riffraff coming around, well, these people, they're going to get protective. And they're not going to want to hear it. These folks, they're hardworking folks as well. There's a little bit of a difference between the middle class and the lowly common folk where I come from. Excuse me. And oh, look at that green trim. That's got to be Polish. I think it's Polish, eh? I'm not being racist, by the way. I'm being an ethnologist. I'm not a racist, I'm an ethnologist. But in the summertime, this is a beautiful neighborhood. The air is fresh and clean. Oh, it's warm, it's sunny. Not very humid. Not too hot. Children play. It's pretty safe around here. Another green trim house. But in this neighborhood, there was all kinds of what you would call white folks. There was British, Scottish, French, Ukrainians I've already mentioned. And they were beautiful people, fancy. They liked sports, football. This was a dental office. I think it still is. This is where you want to get really good burgers and fries. I think this place has been around since the beginning. Just like this house here has been around since the beginning. The folks that live in these houses, I believe, are they're probably managers of businesses. They might be business owners, contractors. Probably nurses. We won't get to the neighborhoods where the doctors are yet, because those doctors, they make a lot of money and they don't live in these neighborhoods. No way. If you got the money, you want to move into a much more gentrified neighborhood. Around here, these common folk, they like to play. Around here, you could almost leave your bikes out in the front yard, like I was saying. You could, like back in the 70s and 80s when we used to go and call on each other. Roving bands of little kids running around in their bikes. I never had a bike, by the way. Too poor. I just have to run beside them and keep up with them. But this was it. This is the middle class neighborhood I was telling you about. I wanted you to see this. In this neighborhood, I can't go right. In this neighborhood, I wanted to go right. I wanted to show you the park. I'm going to still try and get there. Where all the kids used to meet up and play. We'd go to each other's yards. knock on the door. Is Billy home? Billy and Jimbo and Tom. Those are all famous white names from the 70s and 80s. Now that's being race. I'm relying on race talking like that. Doesn't mean I'm being racist. Tom, Billy, Jim, Jamie, Cindy. Who could forget Cindy? I never met a Cindy that wasn't the cute girl of the classroom. Yeah, I never forgot that old lady. I guess I was just confused. I didn't understand till I was 7 years old. That memory stuck with me for a long time. Well, I'm 50 years old guy now. So it's still with me and I still think about it. But we experienced that kind of stuff. You look like a Métis, that guy. So when you grow up in the North End and you meet all these different kinds of people from different places in the world, like Czechoslovakia, Poland, and the Ukraine, all these different people, you get to know who is who. You can tell the difference between, you learn to tell the difference between Asian people. So that's a racist thing that some people have, is that this idea of race, that all Asians look alike. I'm waving this guy on because traffic to my right is just too heavy. I gotta wait. He doesn't have to wait. All right, traffic's not heavy to my right. Dangerous. You need a payday loan? Get yourself a bottle of whiskey. Stop in at the 7-Eleven, grab yourself some ginger ale. Maybe grab a tattoo. Stop for a burger at the diner. And then go for some bowling. What do you think of that? Is this the park? I don't know. I don't think so. Gotta drive aggressive on this highway. This is Henderson Highway. And I don't see the park. Maybe the park is gone. I think they gentrified this neighborhood and put up these condominiums. I guess the park is gone. Well, we're going into the neighborhood where the doctors live. You can't see them because they're too far inset. But to the left, there are giant mansions, houses that are about 3 or 4 houses big. They're in there. They're beautiful. I'll show you. I'll show you real quick here. You see them? Can you see it? So those would be 2-income families with doctors and lawyers living in them. In order to become a doctor or a lawyer, you'd have to go to university for about 6 to 8 years, maybe 10. And once you come out of there, then you got 4 years of practicum, I think. But at least you're getting paid. Yeah, the park's gone. Sorry, folks. I wanted to show you the park. So what kind of support do you need to go to a medical school? You need a lot of support. You need housing. You can do it with a student loan, but you're coming out of there with probably $200,000 in student loan debt. But in the 70s and 80s, I would imagine that's more like $80,000. I'll come down here in the summertime to show you what this looks like. It's beautiful. It's very beautiful. They got flowers, gardens, the birds come here, the bees fly around, the buzzing and all the buzzing. Christmas would be pretty good around here, I would imagine. Private property, folks. Don't go in there. Well, what's the worst that can happen? The cops will be here in about 2 minutes flat if they phone the police. They would just literally drop what they're doing and come here. Because here you can't own a gun. You can't, unless you're hunting. But then you have to go and unlock it and take the lock off the trigger. You know, I'm going to go across the street and I'll show you what it's like over there. Because that's across the street is low middle class folks. The low middle class folks. You saw the managers, you saw the doctors. Let's go look at the low middle class folks. These folks work at Walmart if they even work. And I'm not trying to be judgmental here or be prejudiced, but I'm just trying to explain the demographics of the city of Winnipeg. If these people own these homes, it would be similar to the North End. They're probably owned by people who live in India or China. And the reason why I say that is because in my experience, I've inspected a lot of these places, and I know that the landlords are impossible to reach. You got to talk to a property manager. Look at that. There's an apartment for rent here. 3-bedroom apartment. Wow. That's golden. This might be a low middle class neighborhood, but I'm telling you right now, you want to live here. If you can, if you're trying to lift yourself out of poverty, this ain't a bad neighborhood. There's gangsters here. Oh yeah, for sure. But excuse me. On this side of the road, on this side of Henderson Highway, you don't want to leave your bikes out. It's not that nice. It's not that friendly. The kids around here are a little bit meaner. You know, know, you want to stay on the other side if you want to avoid trouble. But the kids around here, they're tough, you know. They're like hockey players, and they, you know, the tough hockey players that do the body checks and the, I don't know what hockey players do. I never followed hockey, but I was more of a kickboxer. Oh yeah, the hockey players are slashing when the refs aren't looking. That squeaking will go away in the summertime. It's just that we came out of a cold spell. I'll take you to my old house and I'll show you the school across the street here. So after we left that house of horror, we got apprehended by the Child and Family Services agencies, which was a dangerous thing back in those days. I don't know what you're doing there, buddy, but just go. Just go. She don't know. I remember that apartment building. Anyways, we got apprehended by the CFS when we spent a few nights with them in strange homes. I don't even know who those people were. It was awful. And then new social workers came and took us to family, which was a very rare thing. It was something they were just starting back then. But it allowed us to stay with our families. You saw that big brick yellow house there? That's the place. We went to go and stay with family. It wasn't a nice experience. Okay, our family comes out of the Indian residential school 20 years before, maybe 15 years before for some, and they were severely abused children there when they went to the Indian residential school, and that kind of child abuse and neglect by authority figures, people who are supposed to help you, it causes a person to learn distrust in authority and bitterness and resentment. And when you get that kind of a child rearing, you're not going to be a very nice person. You know what I'm saying? You're going to be hostile because you developed in a hostile environment. You're going to have what they call hypervigilance. That means you're always ready to run away from danger or fight, because you got those two choices. I don't know if there's another choice, but there's no room for diplomacy sometimes in these neighborhoods. You gotta act fast. You gotta make split-second decisions. So this neighborhood was probably mostly French, Francophones. And like I said, the British had defeated the French, and this was an era when the French old people were living in these homes. They were retiring. There's that old yellow house. Of course, it's boarded up. Didn't have a good experience there. That was our aunt and our uncle that took care of us there. They think we don't remember, but we were poorly treated by them. There was no love. If that's love, then that's fucking crazy love, man. That's a fucking crazy idea of love. If that's love, I don't want none of it. Okay? Alright. Alright. Now I'm triggered. But yeah, we were just kids, and we had to put up with that shit. Sad times. Very sad times. Very sad times. Like every day was just miserable. You didn't know where your mom and dad were. You didn't know where your other brothers and sisters were. Let's see if I can hold this car in here. I want you to see this. Gangsta. Well, I don't know if there's gangs living there. But here's my point. My point is this. You look around and there's some half decent homes here. They're half decent. Hitting the snowbank. And of course, we are living in the shittiest house in the hood. And when you can visibly see the shittiest house, you get fucking picked on by all your neighbors. And if these people are French and they're still bitter from losing the war, well, they're going to be especially mean to you. And they called us les sauvages, which means the savage, and it wasn't the nice way of saying savage. It was bad. Ooh, can't go that way. I wanted to show you the old school, but maybe you saw it. We never ventured too far. Like, I don't remember going down these streets very much. Although I do have nightmares of this street a lot. Up ahead we have Manitoba Housing. It's called affordable housing. It's housing based on your income. So it's not for profit. These are the lower middle class folks. They're probably carpenters, and they're probably working at the recycling centers and metal fabrication. They're probably getting a decent wage so they can pay their bills, but they're probably not very educated and unsophisticated people. They probably graduated from high school, but public education doesn't do very much for you. And you might come out of there knowing how to read and write, but you don't. That's the old school. But you don't really have an education. You're not very sophisticated. Like, you can't really hold a conversation with a physicist or a biologist or a doctor or a dentist. And the reason for that is because our public education system isn't meant to educate you, it's meant to assimilate you. When I came to this school, they didn't have a classroom for me. They knew I was moving to Glen Elm School in a short period of time. So they just left me in the library for about 3 months. Every day I was in the library for 3 months. That's called Lord Selkirk School. And I remember one of the teachers saying to the principal that I should be in a classroom. And he said, no, he's going to be moving soon. He's okay where he is. And so all I did was sit there for 3 months coloring. They brought me crayons and some paper, and I colored every day. I was just coloring all by myself. Now, when you're sitting in the library every day and all the other kids are playing and making friends and you're not, guess what happens? Well, you get picked on. You get singled out. And you're just a little kid. I remember going out at recess time and these fucking kids would throw snowballs at me and they'd spit on me. They'd hork loogies on me. Yeah. Anyways, sat there for 3 months. And then that teacher came a second time saying, I should be in a classroom. And again, the principal, a little more sternly told the teacher not to bring it up again, that I'm going to a different school soon. We don't know when, but I'm going. And I just sat there. Eventually came the day when we finally moved away. Family was reunited. We went through the whole reunited process of Children's Aid Society. And we moved into that side-by-side I showed you. And life just turned around. It just changed from miserableness. Misery to Christmas. It was Christmas right away. So this is the neighborhood where these guys are probably working. That used to be an old garage up ahead. That's a tow truck driver. He probably makes $20 an hour. No, that's not a tow truck driver. Still makes $20 an hour. I just want to show you where these folks are working. And then we'll shut her down. But anyways, while I was sitting there coloring for 3 months, there was a drawing contest. You could produce some kind of a poster for, I guess, the library systems in Winnipeg. And I had this idea. Star Wars was just out. And so I started working on this drawing of an Imperial Star Cruiser. And I was getting it right. Oh, I was getting it right. This is a Ukrainian Orthodox church up ahead here. Ukrainians. Here's Geldwin Millwork Distribution. They're probably working in there. The average pay here is probably about $25 an hour, and that's being nice to Geldwin. But they're not, like, this city is not doesn't have the opportunities. Anyways, instead of Star Wars, I wrote Book Wars. And of course I won first prize from all these kids who were submitting their work in the whole city. It was a citywide thing. And about 6 months later, maybe 9 months, might have even been a year, I'd long forgotten about that contest. And now I was in grade 3. think it was grade 3 or grade 2. I don't know. It doesn't matter. I got a certificate from my teacher, and I was so proud because it said first prize. So I had won this contest that I didn't even know. I didn't even know that it was the entire city. But I had won first place. Well, all right. This is it. We went from middle class to low middle, no, middle class to upper class to low middle. I'll take you to the super rich one day. You'll see the super, I don't even know if you want to see that, but I'll show you what it looks like here in Winnipeg. Keep in mind, everybody here is struggling. You know, everybody's trying. Even those folks in the low middle class and us lowly common folk, everybody was struggling and trying. Even my young parents, who were too young and shouldn't have had children so young, but that's the way it was back then. And I'm sure you can all relate. You know, it's not like you know, you got these golden opportunities handed down to you just because you're white. There's an ethnic relations problem in Canada, and like I said before, if you're British, you're at the top. You're pretty well at the top, or you at least have the best opportunities you could possibly have. And if you're French, you're probably pretty close behind the British. And then if you're Eastern European, like Ukrainian and Polish and German and Russian, you're probably sweeping floors, mopping up behind the British and the French. But that would have got you, your children, a chance to go to university or college. And then you'd be low middle class or middle class. It's not the best. It's not the best position to be in. But this is what you could have. You could live in a small house, warm. You wouldn't be very sophisticated. You couldn't hold a conversation with an academic. But even below them was Métis and First Nation people, right at the very bottom. Because if you were of African descent, you could be Egyptian or Somalian, Nigerian. You're doing better than any First Nation or Métis person back in those days. And if you want to read about that, you could read John Porter's 1960, The Vertical Mosaic. It was a groundbreaking revelation to Canadian society. It embarrassed Canada entirely because it revealed ethnic relations showing some kind of hierarchical vertical stratification, where the British were at the very top of the class. Why are you taking a picture of me? Did you guys notice that picture? I'm not speeding. Anyways, you can read about that in the vertical mosaic. And the one thing about ethnic relations in Canada is how they leave you out. They deliberately try to push you out of positions. And the way they do that is once as an ethnicity you're in, you start hiring your family. And the Filipinos are doing that right now here in Winnipeg. At every Shoppers Drug Mart, there's going to be a Filipino family. And all they're doing is hiring family. Not everybody, but you could go to any Shoppers Drug Mart here in Winnipeg and there's going to be an over-representation of Filipino employees there. Coming back to Henderson Highway here. But that's what they did in the 70s. So the Ukrainians, the Germans, once they got into positions of power in all of these different workplaces I'm telling you about, they just hired their friends and family. People from church. See that church? Not a very Christian thing to do, but that's what they did. And they kept out people of African descent, the ones who identify as black, the black race. Until eventually they didn't care if you were Ukrainian or German or Polish, as long as you're white. And that's racism. And that's when racism began in Winnipeg, in Canada. And that's how it is today. That's how it is today. But there's something called mobility, ethnic mobility, and that's why I'm saying in all of these middle and upper class neighborhoods I'm telling you about, Métis people and First Nation people started to move in. And they started to take some of these jobs, some of these opportunities started to open up for them. They didn't exist for anybody in 1978, 79, 80. That bridge we just went over is called the Slaw, or what's it called? That's not the Slaw Rebchuk. I can't remember. I can't remember, but it's some kind of a Ukrainian name. You'd think the Ukrainian and Polish people have been here for 1,000 years. They haven't been here for 1,000 years. How do I turn you? Oh, I had you like that. So I turn you this way. Ukrainians and Polish people, they haven't been here. But all these bridges are being named after them. First Nations people have been here since time immemorial. We don't have any bridges named after anybody here that I'm aware. All right, thanks for joining, thanks for listening. You have yourself a good day.